So welcome back to Man Uprising and the Tool Shed. Now, I love this tool. This one has changed certainly the way I think about my money, but more than money, it's the way we should think about our lives. And I use it with my clients, and it's really been transformative, and I'll tell you why. I got this tool from my good friend, my financial planner, Michael Feiner. If you don't know Michael, you can listen to some of our podcasts where we talk about money and or finance and the Enneagram. He and I created a program called Wealth 360. We use it with money managers, financial planners to better understand and relate to their clients. But this one really isn't about money, although you should work with Michael over finer.com, F-I-N-E-R.com, because he's been just tremendous in not only growing my wealth, which is my number one priority with a wealth manager, but also to, just to plan, to strategize, to really think deeper in a different way with my finances, more than just money. Because as I've said elsewhere, money is a means. That's why it's called means. It's not an end. It's a means to something else. And so working with Michael has really helped shape or shift the way I think about my finances and, the role that they play in my life and what I want them to do for me. So this one is called the stock exchange, and why or how I use this in my life, again, certainly with following the markets, which I do to some novice degree, but also the way I think about the markets of life, because I'm going to share with you a transformative video, screenshot, because as Michael told me, if you follow the market day to day, if you're a day trader, you can really start to lose your mind. And unless you absolutely know what you're doing, it's too much. I follow the markets sometimes too closely, like certainly during the COVID period. And I just go into like this fear, this reaction. Why? Because if you look at markets from a day-to-day period, it just looks like they're up and they're down and they're up and they're down. And excuse me, it's like, I think about watching your kids grow. When you're so close to it, you just don't see it. But what Michael showed me is if you zoom out, and here's the graph I want to show you, this is what it looks like. I believe this is like from 1926, maybe. It's so small I can't read, to 2022. Look at the trajectory of this thing. When you're in it up close, it looks chaotic. But when you've zoomed out, it's a 45-degree angle. It's a mathematical trajectory. It's an equation. It's a principle. I'm not smart enough to tell you why this is, but I am smart enough to tell you that don't rely on your day-to-day outlook. If you're facing your marriage, your kids, your work, your health, whatever it is you're focused on, if you zoom in, I'm not telling you not to look at it, but when I have clients who zoom in too closely, they can't see the forest through the trees, as the saying goes. They forget the big picture. They're just so into the weeds or the trees, and understandably, because we're in reaction, we're in fear, and that's the point of the stock market tool. We are in fear if we follow it too closely, so we have to zoom out. And when you zoom out, there's a 45-degree angle. There's a constant, steady upward trajectory. It can't be a vertical. That's not real. That's a Bernie Madoff financial model. And it can't be flat. That's a doomsday pessimist. That's not reality. It has to be somewhere in between those extremes. Now, again, it doesn't travel a smooth line. It travels highs and lows, peaks and valleys. And that's how life is lived. That's how it should be. You know how many people I talk to say it shouldn't be this tumultuous? It shouldn't be this highs and lows. I'm here to live a balanced life. That's the goal of Buddhism and of sort of a meditative or spiritual, worldview. That's not true Buddhism. That's not true anything. It's not about living sort of, with equanimity. That's something certainly worthy of aspiring to. It just doesn't happen. Try living with equanimity when your loved one dies, when your business goes under, when your marriage falls apart. You ain't going to live with equanimity. If you do, that's probably why it fell apart, because marriages that live with equanimity, without highs and lows, without love and fights, they don't last. Or if they do, it's a smooth sailing ride, and I don't think you trade that in for for a life of smooth sailing to give up the peaks and the valleys. Why? Because there is energy in the peaks and there's energy in the valleys. Now, we live in a culture where we tend to just focus on the peaks. We tend to just focus on when the market is up. But as Warren Buffett, great, obviously, finance mind, says, when the markets are down, when there's sell-offs, that's when it's time to buy, because he understands the principle. There's energy down there. There's opportunity down there. This is what Viktor Frankl meant by finding meaning in suffering. There's always meaning in suffering. We don't create the meaning. From a Frankl perspective, my teacher mentor, we discover meaning. Our job, as the mystics, the Kabbalists say, is to become spark seekers when it's dark, to go into the darkness, to mine it for meaning, to find that energy that Buffett was talking about and buy, invest. Be all in when the downturn market happens, because follow the trajectory, follow the 45-degree angle. There will be peaks again. Those peaks won't last. There will be valleys again. Those valleys won't last. Whatever your peaks and your valleys are in your life, yes, go find meaning in the mountaintops. And yes, enjoy the smooth sailing while it lasts, but know that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your life. It's the way of the world. It's the rhythms of the universe. And it's the things, the stuff that people have been grappling with since the beginning of time. The highs are not high forever. The lows also will not last. I wear a ring on my finger that says Gam ze ya'avor. This too shall pass. And that's a reminder that when the peaks are there, they won't last. But when the valleys are there, they won't last. And as my good friend Michael said, zoom out and see the 45-degree angle, not just in the markets, but in your marriage and in your parenting and in your anything you're focused on in your life, right? That's the trajectory that ultimately we are all on, but it's made up of peaks. And yes, it's made up of valleys. Sometimes you just got to zoom out and see the rise, the 45-degree angle of the stock market. I'll see you in another video. Until then, rise up in the second half of life.